3, 2, 1.
3, 2, 1.
All right. So this episode really is, for me, it's ideology over people, because I think that's the source of the greatest evil.
Yeah.
So and then that way we can go system over people, because there's a few things that I'm seeing within the world of science that I want to talk about, because I don't like what I'm seeing. So anyway, in order to go system over people, I don't think there's a better example than the Epstein saga. So let's do this simple. Let's start with the dude.
Yeah, the dude.
Chronologically, right.
Basically, so Jeffrey Epstein, I'm not gonna throw a bunch of dates or all the specifics out there, because that becomes boring. But basically, was a quote billionaire, and we'll get to why he was a quote billionaire.
What I heard was $600 million worth.
Correct.
So not billionaire, but yeah.
Not billionaire, but that is, I think, more like actual wealth, actually, than what his claims were. So there was a lot of claims putting him in the way more money.
Yes.
The fact is, even the amounts of money that he had weren't justifiable. So
No.
he had managed...
We're going to get into that.
Okay.
But what the number publicly was to what he was worth, for what I heard, was $600 million.
Something like that.
Yeah. That's how he started.
Yeah.
Anyway, when the whole fucking shebang in the media started, they were saying $600 million. Yeah. That's going to matter a lot, because after they said billionaire, but after...
So I am going to run through, I want to give a couple checkpoints for people to see. So we're going to go to kind of pre-Epstein's, before his Florida arrest.
Yeah.
What happened with the Florida arrest and the deal that got, and then what happened in custody. Yep. So before all of this, basically he had done lots of things. He had been a math teacher at a couple of universities, I believe.
Yeah, I think so.
With zero credentials at all for being an educator, by the way. None. They don't really know why or how that happened at all. The entire thing, I remember there was, I think it was an Eric Weinstein podcast where he was talking about that. And he had even said that Epstein was, when he met him in person, said it was like talking to a person who was a complete construct.
But they also the same thing. Extremely charismatic.
For sure.
Good-looking dude who seemed to have a lot of success with women.
Yes. And
because it's important to set the ground.
Yeah. Success with women, though, is an interesting story. but
it's important to set that, because this is going to come very important. Like, to most people, he was that very rich good-looking, charismatic playboy who liked beautiful women in their 20s.
Correct.
That's how he was seen by the world for the longest time, up until The Dark Secret came out.
Yeah.
But that's going to be I believe it's a very important part of that, is that he was seen as a typical playboy.
It was the quote billionaire playboy. Was kind of
exactly.
The thing,
right.
when the billionaire myth was still up there with it. That was the thing.
So math teacher,
nobody knows why, moved on to any number of things, started managing, worked at Bear Stearns, started a big hedge fund thing.
So eventually, so then once we know about him, when he becomes that almost billionaire playboy, at the time he is said to be managing a hedge fund, right? And especially toward monetary transactions, like what do you call that? Money from different currency manipulation and things like this.
The specifics of his money are very interesting, though.
Are we going to get that?
I'm only going to go into this very briefly. So the specifics of his money are interesting in that there are really only one major client of his.
Right, but I want to go into this.
I think I need to control the pace of this more than you.
No, I wanted to set the base as to how he's seen by the world up to his, when he gets to Florida. Okay. It's a $600 million playboy, very charismatic. That has
lots of connections. He started using the term philanthropist, tied in very tightly with the Clinton Foundation. Lots of global initiatives for charity, donations, vaccinations, all those other things.
Very successful with younger women in their 20s, very smart women. Why? Because he's a patron of science. He actually gave money to, MIT and Harvard and stuff like that. And he actually funded a lot of research, of scientific research.
And privately, a huge proponent for eugenics, if you look into that much as well.
Actually,
I won't get into a whole lot of first account things, because those things are someone's word versus another, which is hard. But there is more than enough to point to that. More than enough. At least that was something he was very enthusiastic about.
He funded a lot of stuff on science and a lot of things on biology.
Yeah.
I think it's important to set the ground, because people need to again, like we're gonna go into things where his public image, I believe, is a integral part of the story.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So no matter what conspiracy you go through, the public image is a foundation of that, because he was seen as that extremely successful, charismatic dude. Yeah, that had, younger women around, but, power and money and women always went together.
And the younger women around thing, none of that never really started to raise much eyebrows.
Because
really.
They were in the 20s. They were mid-20s, very smart,
Yeah.
very beautiful, very smart. Who doesn't like
Yeah.
very beautiful, very smart women? So, and you have money, you have power, you're charismatic.
Yeah.
Naturally, there are going to be some very smart, very beautiful women around
Bruce
you.
Wayne can do it, why can't Jeff? You know?
Right, exactly, right.
Yeah, exactly.
And so, so now that's the public image. And now we're going to get into the actual issue. So there's a conspiracy theorist. He has his notes, as you can tell.
There's a lot. So we have to get common ground. We have to step forward with common ground every time.
Right, yes.
Because I can't come in and be like, the world is flat.
Yeah.
Because then there's no way I can even get you to take the first step.
So do you want to start about the money? His money?
No. The money's less interesting than you think. The money is weird. The money, all of his money.
No, but it has to be. No, because I want to ask questions.
There are
that
questions.
The media did not.
Let's talk about the questions that should be asked first.
Okay, let's talk about that.
The questions that should be asked are, how does he amass all of this wealth when his primary only client was Les Wexner?
Right. Okay, so let's talk about that first.
That's the guy who owns many, many companies in retail, including Victoria's Secrets and others. That's who essentially Jeffrey Epstein acted as his power of attorney for most of their lives, and managed many of their funds. He lives in a $77 million mansion in Manhattan. I believe it's the most expensive property that
Epstein?
you can buy.
Yeah.
That was Wexner's. That was essentially
So Wexner gave him a $80 million property in New York.
Yeah.
No, because that part I want to talk about, because from my personal experience about people worth that kind of money. So, because then we can go into the meat of the stuff. But first, let's talk about the money, because I do believe at least he gives questions that should have been asked and for whatever reason never asked.
Yeah.
So, first of all, let's say he's worth $600 million. That's what they say at first. He has a $77 million penthouse in Manhattan, one of the biggest ones, if not the biggest one. Right. But he was gifted by the dude. Okay, fine. Then he has an island, a float of private jets, and a number of properties.
I think they said approximately a dozen.
Right.
Residences.
So that at first, I was like, the reason is it was in 2005. I think I was training for like 2+ years. A guy named Curtis McGwen. Curtis McGwen was the founder and owner of a hedge fund called Ivory something. Fuck, I forgot. Man, I'm getting old. Ivory something. Anyway, so in 2005 when I trained him, he made like $250 million that year. So he was roughly worth about about the same amount of money, between 6 to 8, right? And for 2+ years, I trained him like 2-3 times a week. We had a lot of talk about his world, because I was very curious. He's someone who shorted Enron and made a lot of money. He's someone who saw the subprime credit mortgage. Yeah. He told me 2 years before it happened, it's like, I need to make my hedge fund worth $1 billion. So I need to sell it for $1 billion, because 5 years from now, this shit with China, the subprime mortgage problem with China, will crush the economy and everything. I need to sell before that. So he was right about, and explained to me the whole thing. He was right about all of it. So he saw it coming. Just he said 5 instead of 2.
Yeah.
But he saw it coming and all that stuff, right? So very smart guy. By the way, for the story, he came on a boat from Vietnam with, like his 7 brothers and sisters, his parents and everything, live in a room about that big 4 years, made it to, the best school, then Wharton, and then, and he was the wonder boy in New York. And so like super smart guy, right? And he was worth about that kind of money. And maybe he was on the cheap side, but I can tell you from his lifestyle that it does not fit the Epstein lifestyle, the lifestyle. That someone worth $600 million does not have the amount of stuff Epstein has. Yeah, it doesn't work like that. Like the Epstein lifestyle was worth, if not tens of billions, if not billions. But his wealth, if you look at it, was in the tens of billions of dollars. Yeah. That is a question.
Or if that's just wealth that he had at his disposal, which is a different thing than being his. You know, it depends on who kind of is his.
No, exactly. Right. Thing. So then, or he has a backer.
Yeah.
But then to back that means you're in the 50, 100 billions of dollars, right? And there's not that many.
The connections everything that I've seen, and I've gone, my research on this has lasted a long time, not just for this thing, but I mean, I've even in the last couple of weeks listened to, I don't know, probably 4 hours of basically firsthand testimony from people within the organization who had left. Some of them are victims' testimonies. There's not very many that are out because there are cases being made right now against his estate. But generally, the things point towards most likely that Les Wexner was actually the person who was running this operation that was in the U.S. and that Epstein was kind of his go-to, his on-the-ground person for those. Do you want to get into what the operation was?
Well, first, let's go into, but first let's do Epstein first. So Epstein, to justify $600 million, was supposed to have a hedge fund, basically.
Correct.
Right. Except there is absolutely no record of any transaction from that hedge fund. There is no amount of trade, monetary currency trade or anything like that. So we cannot find a transaction from that hedge fund that is justifying a $600 million worth on someone. No, but that, to me, of course, there's many explanations, but that's not my problem with this. Is the fact that why has the media not asked
Just that.
That alone should ring bells into everybody. There is no transaction from his hedge fund. Talking to Curtis like it's an insane...
Especially with all of the money that has basically come from him to these other organizations as well.
Funding science, by the way.
Funding into the Clinton Foundation.
Into the Clinton Foundation, everything.
And then in hands-on roles. By the way, Jeffrey Epstein is listed on their website and he listed, I think, in his own bio as one of the founders of the Clinton Foundation. I might.
I didn't see that one.
Yeah.
But because we know for a fact that Bill Clinton was in his plane 26 times.
27. And 5 of those times were without the Secret Service. I can't begin to infer what could have gone on or what those things. Many of them were flights to Africa. But if I fly for charitable stuff for the foundation, but I'll be goddamned if the people I know the most, the best. I mean, I've maybe flown 27 times with my wife.
But whatever. But the fact is, again, for me, it's not the answer because there might be. It's the fact that the questions were never asked.
Exactly, and I don't go to point to any one of these things as this means this.
Right.
And especially in the world of socialites and billionaires, there's a lot of charitable fundraising. If you know how any of that stuff goes, what the MO for people trying to raise money is you get rich people in a building, give them drinks, and get them to compete bidding over each other. And so just because there's a picture with someone with Epstein pre-2011.
Yeah, that doesn't mean shit.
It really doesn't mean anything. I have pictures with Hafthor Bjornsson, and he does not know my fucking name.
Yeah.
So
it doesn't mean anything. And by the way, when you, I think it's an important part also to say is when you say like the socialite and everything, there is a pecking order for the very rich. Mm-hmm. And when you're not worth $1 billion, you're in the back and you shut up. I had a conversation with Curtis many times. He's like, no, you don't understand. There's a billionaire club. So there's social classes even within the very rich. Yeah. And when you're not worth $1 billion, you put your ass down.
It's like it depends on what. It's like we talked about. Are you a really shitty black belt?
Right, in jiu-jitsu, you just sit down and so exactly. It's exactly that. If you're that black belt who got it because he basically was there enough years. But you still get tapped by purple and brown belts. You're the dude who will let you have your black belts. Yeah. But don't you go into...
You're the poorest guy of the rich guys right now.
Right. So you sit down and you don't say a word about jiu-jitsu. Yeah. We let you have the black belt, but in exchange, you don't say shit. Right? Yeah. Unless it's a blue belt and go help. Yeah. But otherwise, you shut up, right? And then you have the John Machado where you're like, yes. That's basically how it works. Epstein acted like a John Machado, not like the poor, the dude who should sit his... And with that kind of money... Normally you wouldn't. Yeah. So we could use this and go back to what's his name? His main backer.
Les Wexner.
I forget his name every time.
Wexner.
I want to put
it's a bad French.
I want to put an L every time. Wexner. What was interesting is that Wexner's money kind of went down, like his fortune went down a lot. At the same time, Epstein seemed to be going up. So there's an entire weird Yeah, that one. Oh, by the way, that alone should be a question.
Alone, the money should be a question.
How come Wexner's money was going down, was Epstein was going up?
And the amount of political and university and like global initiative money that's coming from unsourced billions of dollars over the course of his life, completely unsourced, should raise some real questions. Where is it coming from? Who is it? It's got to be coming from either something legitimate that's being hidden, or something very illegitimate that's then being masked as.
Or even if it's Wexner funneling his entire massive amount of
into
function
this operation.
into Epstein, we would need to know why.
Yeah.
That's kind of, because we're talking about like, I can't remember the numbers, but he must have put like half his fortune into this shit.
Now Epstein was also a very good candidate for a person to have this. What's the word? Like, Epstein couldn't really be leveraged. In that he didn't have family.
Right. That's true.
He didn't have any real moral, nothing that he's going to be accused of is off-brand. So a man who openly brags about having late teen to early 20, but young women, and even according to people who worked in his office, 5 to 10 per day coming in and out of the building, in and out of his office. That's just on brand for him. That's like he's just, I'm a playboy. I just do the thing.
I like beautiful women.
So none of that stuff. You're not.
He's Bruce Wayne.
Yeah, you're not going to really come at him with a scandal at that point. For what? You know.
Yeah. Well, it's Dan
Philandering?
Blitzerian meets Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
That's from a public image.
Yeah.
Then the dark stuff comes out.
Yeah.
But from a public image, this is what you have. Yeah, it's absolutely. It's very hard to leverage the guy.
Yeah.
But so that's a public image. We know what. So those are the few of the questions that I would have liked to ask if I were the media. But then the dark stuff starts to show up.
Yeah, I want to make sure I know where to start. So I think let's just go with, I want to cover just generally what the helicopter view, what some of the accusations were, and then we'll zoom into Florida.
Yeah. Right. Well, because that's when most people know.
Correct.
The first red flag was Florida.
So in Florida is where some of the specifics will come to light. But generally, what the accusations are revolving around the Epstein case are that he and his chief co-conspirator, is that Julien Maxwell?
Yep.
Who, by the way, is it? Because I'm about 70-30 on every piece of audio I've consumed. 70% goes Julien. The other 30 go Ghislaine.
If you're doing the French way, Ghislaine.
Okay.
Yeah, but you know,
I have no idea.
In the US, you say bon appetit.
We make everything.
You all pronounce the T at the end, which drives every French person crazy. It's like the T is silent. So technically, it'd be Ghislaine, but whatever. Your Hicks are going to pronounce it the way you want anyway.
I'm only
just telling you.
Some of them are firsthand, so I can only go off of those.
They're still fucking it up.
True, but if that's what she pronounces her name at.
Because she's in the US, but anyway. Yeah.
It's Tyler.
Yeah. Tiller.
It's Taylor in most parts of the world, I guess.
Tiller.
The Y doesn't
it's like
mean
Tigger. I would go with Tiller, but yeah.
But anyway, this the operation, as what has kind of been that he's been accused of, is that what he was running during that time is basically it starts fundamentally as sex trafficking.
We're talking Florida accusation.
Florida plus what was going. This is all in the meantime. So during that time.
Around Florida,
Florida, which this is actually probably a decade before that. But up until then, the accusations were for sex trafficking. The accusations were that they would bring in sex trafficking used for most likely blackmail. There are many firsthand accounts from Epstein's words himself, where he's saying that he has video cameras everywhere in his house in Manhattan, everywhere in his island, and that people would go. Now that's where that line gets drawn of his claim. But that's people would go, rumors, that's where they would go, they would have parties, then you would be able to blackmail them. Like, I have a video of you cheating on your wife. Boom.
But the accusation in Florida was him personally using...
The accusation in Florida was him personally, but that was kind of something that had floated up that just had to get addressed then. Right. It wasn't for the whole thing.
No, but the only thing he got accused of is him personally using underage girls.
Him personally, the charges was actually procuring a minor for prostitution and soliciting prostitution.
Yes. But you were saying that, so that's what he was accused of personally.
Yep.
But at the same time, there was a word on the street that he was using a lot of the girls, maybe not underage, by the way.
Not all. So the underage thing is interesting with this, in that it doesn't get pushed as far. it's weird how the media handles it. Either it is purely pedophile stuff, but with him, it wasn't.
Right, so there was him. He was accused to be a pedophile in Florida in 20.
And by the way, I don't maybe defend the guy either. He's not a good guy. But what I'm saying is, in his case, this isn't 5, 6, 7 years old. It primarily is like 20 years old, 19 years old, and then they would brush into the 17, 16, 15,
exactly.
Especially when he was leveraging other people.
Right. So that's a little bit my question. It's like the word on the street. So him got accused of underage girls.
Yes.
Like 17, 15, 16, 17-year-old giving him massages and everything.
Multiple massages.
That's what he got accused of. But the word on the street was basically he was running a honeypot for blackmail with girls legal
and illegal. Yeah.
Okay.
But all of them recruited and trafficked.
And we know that, the word on the street, we know that through...
So the recruiting and trafficking, I can go to, this is going to be witness testimony, but this is witness testimony.
From the girl themselves?
From some themselves, but some of them, again, if it's one word against, but if there's multiple, there's one specifically who, there's a 90-minute interview out there where she basically went through, with a journalist, this has had to be published separate, but she was with him for about a year and a half in the office, and before she really even understood, with Epstein, before she even really understood what was going on. So her thing was...
So what was she doing for a year?
She was, one, trafficked in there first. And so then she was basically handed off and made to go give massages. And sleep with guys. So she was kind of used in that capacity.
How old was she?
I don't know what that age.
No.
She was of legal age during her...
She was of legal age.
Legal age.
Yeah. So it's the whole thing of staying with the dude for over a year that I'll never...
Well, it's human trafficking is kind of the nature of it.
So they can't get away. Yeah.
Even the cleaning staff was the same way. The cleaning staff in that building, she was talking to them and they were trafficked in from the Philippines. She said, no, we were picked up and brought. The whole thing is
so no one could talk.
That's the accusation really, is that this was a big human trafficking network, sex trafficking, and that it went then, because that was the network, that became a target. So then somebody leveraged that network into turning it into an intelligence operation. That's where the blackmail stuff kind of comes from. Then.
Right.
So this network exists. You have a guy who can get you anybody, girls, boys, any age, right? Get you anything you want. You're rich, you're powerful,
there's cameras.
It's private. You don't know there's cameras. And so the first time you go there, what happens is you can issue a scandal. You can break somebody by just presenting something that's far enough off brand. So if you're a senator and you're on TV and it's, me and my wife, whatever, and you're caught giving some guy a hand job in the bathroom at an airport, that's a big dissonance. That's going to break you.
That happened more than one time.
Yeah, and if you... and so there's a lot of these situations. There's connections unsubstantiated other than from witnesses and victims, which I think you have to give some credence to.
If there's enough smoke, there's a fire.
You have to listen. You have to ask the fucking questions, right?
But that's the thing too. Is if you... The only thing we focused on, which is what drove us crazy, is the pedophile aspect.
Yeah.
Where we're like, of course you want to focus on that, but this seems to be such a small part of the story. If there's a sex... This is the part where I'll never understand how the shit works. That's for the end of the podcast, where we're talking about pedophile stuff. There's like listed, there's like, 20 maybe girls? Right. But we're talking possibly of an operation that ran... not even hundreds.
No, so the lady who, so to specify, remember the lady I said who had spent that time, whatever, in her office, who was did that interview with the journalist. Yeah. What she had said was she went to the police. This was, I believe, in Florida around that time. She went to the police and she tried to do the thing, and they did almost nothing. Yeah. The Florida police were kind of hamstrung by the intelligence community. They literally, she said she had very specifically tapes with fingerprints on them that she said she's pretty sure contained videos of child pornography, because it was tapes of women that that was when she found out some of these girls were underage and were trafficked, and then just like her. Yeah. And she starts going through this process, and the law enforcement she said basically there was about 2 guys in whatever that she talked to who were saints and fought for, and the rest she was like they were either scared or literally trying to get her out of the office. But those tapes, she offered to give them to them, to bring them in. The police refused to accept it. They literally would not accept evidence that says there are fingerprints and there is fucking child pornography on here. Refuse to accept this evidence from her. It's insane. But her testimony...
But that's why it's unsubstantiated, because she could not get the fucking proof in. Yeah.
And so now one of the things that she had claimed as well was that this operation went... She said that because she's been in contact with some of the victims' attorneys that are in dispute with the Epstein estate. And she said one of them has a list of approximately 500 names of victims.
Oh, wow.
But the issue, this is the real issue at the bottom of this that people don't understand, is the magnitude of this, I think, is much larger than that. She said that 5 to 10 per day number is pretty on point. And she said that she's most likely that and that's just what was going through his office, that the operation probably involved thousands and thousands of people. And the question is, where the fuck are they? Yeah. That's the other big one. Where are they? They don't just have jobs and different names. Many of them might be dead and gone. And that's the real issue. Not just the heinous crimes while people are alive, but like there is something to this. If there is all of these
if the
people,
numbers are that large,
where the fuck are they?
Yeah.
But so that's the magnitude of it is really large. But so what happened in Florida?
So when he's personally...
this has totally detached from the operation. I've got some details here kind of on those accusations.
So let's explain. So he gets arrested, technically gets arrested for underage prostitution.
Yep, the charges were, I even had it in here, but nothing, and they were only state level charges. Also,
so state level charges of basically underage prostitution.
Yep, procurement of minors for prostitution, which to me sounds an awful lot like what sex trafficking is, by the way. Like child sex trafficking, procuring a minor, getting a minor for prostitution. No, in that case, it's like, come on, like that is a very adjacent crime. Jesus
no, sometimes
Christ.
it's just pedophilia, but in the sense of I want a 15-year-old.
What he got for such crimes.
Right.
So let's talk about the plea deal first. So I don't want to go into a lot of the tales of police corruption and around that.
Let's get to his.
But this deal that he got was fucking insane. He ended up doing. He got sentenced to 18 months in jail. He spent 12. He was incarcerated for 12 months and then early release for good behavior. During that time, he was able to go on work release to a foundation with which he set up himself, a new foundation in a strip mall. He was able to go for 12 hours a day, up to 6 days a week.
Right. So he slept in jail, but during the day was allowed to leave.
Go to his own office.
To his own foundation to work.
A dummy foundation office,
12 hours a day. Yeah. So basically he slept in jail for 12 months.
Rumors and photographs of him on the beach during that time.
12 hours a day for 6 days a week. Yeah. Let's be honest, I would do the same.
For sure.
I would say this is my office and I'd be,
Now that plea deal, that deal that was given, none of the alleged victims, and this is what led to the rearrest, none of the victims of that crime were even notified that that deal was going to happen, which is a legal requirement. You have to notify the victims so they can at least voice that they don't think the deal is fair. And that's the centerpiece of how he got because this deal, it gets better. This deal was going to make him untouchable for anything regarding anything that went on before this. This deal granted immunity to 4 unnamed associates, which I can go through, and there are names, Ghislaine Maxwell included, but technically they remain unnamed. Whatever. But here's the big one, the clause that says, and any potential co-conspirators. Which meant that they were all exempt from any prosecution regarding to anything related to this, which was crazy. But now, the prosecutor was going through and said, or was it the judge? Basically, when he gave him this deal, they call it now the sweetheart deal, right?
Yeah, yes.
When asked about it in hindsight, about why he even accepted the deal, why anything, he said, Acosta came and he said, I was told, his quote was, I was told that he, quote, belonged to intelligence and to, quote, leave it alone and, quote, it was above my pay grade.
I thought, because I remember him, Acosta, talking about the fact that he was so scared about the opposing team of lawyers that he didn't want to risk the guy walking.
So what happened was, there's part of that because he was given really shitty advice by some of the people above him as well, in that they were wanting to stick him for, I don't remember the charge, but it was a charge that required a very specific type of action that he thought that Epstein was going to be able to beat on a
Right,
technicality.
right.
And that's what they wanted. They said, go at him for this, go at him for this. And he was like, I can't make it stick.
I always look at stupidity before malfeasance.
For sure.
So let's to talk about Acosta.
But he dumbed down the thing to something he could make stick.
Right.
And then
because I remember the argument,
forced,
which could make sense, which means if he were given something so outrageous that we have to explain, Epstein had a team of killer lawyers at the time.
All the best lawyers that the international money can pay.
That's just really good lawyers. And he comes around, and Acosta, who seemed to have been thrown to the wolf, is stuck with something. He figures with that kind of lawyers, the guy will beat. Yeah. So he brings him down to something he thinks he can stick. Yeah. But attached to that is the sweetest of deal. Right. Yeah. And what is the killer on the deal is not the 12 months in basically it's the immunity. Yes, it's the immunity that comes with that. Yeah. That's really what the sweet deal was.
And if you now let's talk potential co-conspirators real quickly here.
Yeah.
I'm going to only cover the loose connections. Loose connections.
So that part is the part where you cannot necessarily substantiate.
Bill Clinton 27 times on the Flight 5 without the Secret Service.
By the way, what year is that?
This is, I believe, 2011.
That's what I think. 2011, right? Yeah. That's what I remember.
Now, it's very interesting with the Clinton stuff. Everything is circumstantial. Every single thing except these flight logs is actually circumstantial because of the foundation connection. It can all be done under the guise of philanthropy. As far as I see, I actually don't see any specific connections actually with Bill Clinton going to Epstein's Island even directly at all.
Yeah.
However, there's some really weird shit. There's a painting of Bill Clinton in Epstein's fucking $77 million Manhattan mansion.
Where he has the Monica Lewinsky dress on.
Wearing the blue Monica Lewinsky dress, laid out in like a glamour pose.
Looking straight at you.
Now, if we're being honest, I'd have that in like, if I had a bar in my house, that'd be kind of fucking dope to have that. But so...
Yes,
but it's still weird.
He has the George Bush Jr. one too.
Yeah,
as a kid.
So it's just that on its own is just strange. But you can't infer a whole lot. There's actually, I can find more kind of direct ties from Donald Trump to the operational side of Epstein's stuff than I can Clinton operationally. However, there was a falling out around the same time around this Florida
between Trump
thing,
and
with Trump
Epstein.
and thing. But there are connections really operational involving kind of Trump's thing versus
Trump was the biggest womanizer, so was Clinton.
Exactly.
So those two being in touch with Epstein is not surprising.
Exactly. The falling out that went on there was a falling out that went on between Trump and Epstein and around the Florida thing just before that. And some will say that aligns Trump with the side of right on this issue, that Trump was right, Epstein bad guy. Now, people need to stop thinking of that.
I don't see why, but okay.
Well, one that could have gone wrong, it's most likely went wrong over a business deal, essentially. A real estate deal. Epstein showed Trump this thing, didn't think Trump was cash rich enough to do it. Trump snatched it up and bought it. There was a whole thing. Then Epstein ended up getting kicked out of Mar-a-Lago. Trump claimed it was for bringing underage girls in. That's a very moral way to do it. It could just be a way to cut bait.
By the way,
I can't substantiate
I'm no Trump lover, that's for sure. But I could see a dude who's a womanizer, talking about Trump, who loves women in their 20s and everything, and who's very perceptive of his public persona. Yeah. And he found another guy, very charismatic, that loves women in their 20s, and they have fun. Up to the moment where guys say, hey, how about 15?
Yeah.
And the guy goes, whoa. Yeah. I'm having just enough fun with 10-year-olds. Why would you need... What, by the way, that kind of raises a question, tells you how sick some people are, is what do you need to go 16? When you can have 19.
Yeah.
And never be in trouble in your life. Right. No, you got to go 16, 17. 17 to 19... Yeah. What is the fucking difference?
Some of that I think was again some of the rumblings, if you will, is that even for most of the honeypot stuff, the blackmail schemes that was going on there, is that wasn't even that 16 or 17 was desirable. What it would be is they would pick a 16-year-old who looked 22.
Oh yeah, of course. Well, and then, if it's blackmail, totally.
And then what happens is they say, boom, gotcha.
Yeah. Yes. When it comes to the honeypot, definitely.
But yeah, and so in this case here, what I think you have to understand is that if somebody brings the hammer down on Epstein, no matter who it is, that doesn't mean that they're good. What most likely means is they were on the other side of what I would describe as the crime syndicate, if you will. These are just crime families here, and they didn't they got along for a while until they overstayed each other's welcome. One versus the other this is not good versus evil.
Yeah. No one is good in the story, but
those connections, anyway, there's quite a there's a lot there. There's more there than people think. There's very interesting ones though that I think of anyone who is after this 2012 thing. Anything that went on in the last 7 years of these people realigning themselves with Epstein.
After the Florida conviction.
And that's where the things where you start pointing your finger at Bill Gates and you start pointing your finger at some of these other things that still pop up in Epstein's world after that conviction.
Right.
It's very strange.
So, okay, no, it is. But could you put that to just a lapse of judgment on some of the people saying like they were willing to look past the Florida conviction because of all the stuff that's the good stuff he was doing, which was promoting science and another like were there ideas in the back, definitely. But he had a public image that was very easy to like.
Now, also...
if you didn't pay attention to the underage stuff.
Also, then, when he was done, he had to register as a level 3 sex offender.
Yeah.
The judge was going to...
At least they got that.
This was in New York State. Yeah. So he had to... Then he paroled or whatever to New York State. The judge was supposed to check... He was supposed to check in every 90 days. But the judge was concerned, wasn't going to give him... basically, the only way he was going to let him do it is because he had a full home on the Virgin Islands and other... island homes. So he said, that's fine, but you have to, every 90 days, you have to be in here or else, right? New York State never once enforced the 90-day rule. And in the Epstein case, even though that non-compliance is a felony, you have registered sex offenders, convicted felons, non-complying with the order with which they have to track. If that's a quote scary predator who misses a check-in, that shit goes out fucking everywhere.
Yeah.
You know what
but
I
not
mean?
in but
not to this guy.
You know, we can say money bought that. It's
for
totally
sure,
possible.
For sure.
But again, those are questions that should be asked.
And if those are the things that money buys, like the people who sold that to him need to go to fucking jail too.
Right. That's a Harvey Weinstein story that we can touch at the end. Is like the guy is a monster. I'm like, do you understand how many people are in on it?
Yeah.
Including the people who accepted the money. Like at some point, why? Yeah. Anyway, we'll go into this.
Now I want to run through. I don't have. There's a lot of claims from one of his, as an investigation that was done into one of Epstein's with one of his business dealings. They had essentially a full Ponzi scheme that completely blew up. Epstein walks away clean. His partner, that was a half partner, gets crucified. Then everything his partner says about all this stuff then can kind of be unsubstantiated, right?
As usual.
Because there's a deal. But I will say you have to also, from here, there are also very many eyewitnesses and victims connecting Prince Andrew to Epstein, to the island, and to the girls, and to the royal family. You also have that thing you saw that came out on ABC News about how the reporter, it's a hot mic in between, the camera stayed on, and she flat out said that years ago we had the Epstein deal, we had everything. She said we had the Clintons, we had the royal family, all this stuff, and we get a call from the fucking royal family, basically comes down to the network and says that they were going to threaten to not give them the fucking royal wedding or whatever that shit was. They weren't going to give them access. And that they basically, over threats, had pulled that piece completely. And then that they were never going to air it. Now they say, it just wasn't up to our investigative standards. But that journalist who did that piece says, we had them all dead to right. We had tapes. We had everything.
Right. So what seems to... we get to the Florida... that bullshit sweetheart deal. And from what the prosecutor says and from what everything comes out, where it seems that Epstein works for the intelligence community.
Correct.
It seems to be that the money is coming from one source only, Les Wexler, who seems to be funneling a large part of his big fortune, without talking like in the tens of billions of dollars, into Epstein's hand. Most of the time as gifts, right? So, and Epstein is using that money to fund science and do stuff, but at the same time run a honeypot, a blackmail based on sex,
And I don't believe that it's also interesting. I don't believe that the honeypot was the reason the operation existed. You know what I'm saying? I think the operation, the sex trafficking operation, was a thing that was a moving mechanism. And then there was an opportunity for the honeypot.
Oh, you think it started first as a sex thing, and then the intelligence
that's
agency.
The thing that warmed up, and then what that became is such an obvious leverage.
The
intelligence
agency
would come in, and the intelligence. There's, the kind of the overall the main theory is that most likely that it was a Mossad thing, that he was working for Israel.
Not the U.S.
Not the U.S. necessarily. No,
oh, really?
No, but there's also a lot of intelligence that gets passed back and forth. So I wouldn't surprise. Would you surprise me a bit if the CIA was complicit with Mossad and fucking Epstein's thing? Not me. Not one fucking bit. Not in the least.
They've done worse.
If that doesn't help you, then you got to just walk yourself a little closer to that.
Yeah, exactly.
But I can tell you that would not surprise me, though I don't have anything to pin.
But if you're gonna run a honeypot on internationally, because we're not talking just the US, we're talking about the royal family, the English royal family. We're talking about going to the Virgin Islands, so different countries, and pulling people like Bill Clinton and Trump and Prince Andrews. And
also think of what you can do with mid-level politicians. You know what can be disrupted when things need to be done quickly if you can have 5 people ready to just jam something up or force something through.
But plus people have to understand that the socialite aspect of billionaires means it's a club in itself, regardless of almost region of the world or of countries. They're billionaires. They're just not you. Yeah. It's a really close club, and they feel, I think, in touch with each other more than they do with their countries.
Yeah, they do not feel. Many of these people do not feel loyalty. In this case specifically, there's no loyalty
to the billionaires club. So imagine that once if you're in that club, you're touching people from all over the world. My point is, then he would point at a intelligence. The intelligence world would be probably more than one country, for sure, because they have access to everybody. So if it's the Mossad, I would go with the US first. There's no fucking way they have someone like that. Because again, they pressure Acosta.
Yeah. Exactly.
Some people from the US got a lot of the stuff buried. So obviously the US has to be involved. Yeah. Mossad, I'll trust you on that one.
That's
I didn't look at it. So that's
and there was some. I want to say there may be. I don't know if it was money, but there was some other connections there. But the interesting thing though is the media connection here. Right. Is that what the media didn't do or said is what's really interesting. And so that's one of the reasons why, like you, where you believe most likely it could very well be an American intelligence hands in this operation. I agree. I fully agree.
Amongst others.
Yeah, yes. Because of what has been proven, like proven with the United States intelligence community and the media over the last 50 years. Yeah. This isn't your neighbor going, the goddamn liberal media. Like that's not a thing that's the real thing. The real thing is that since the 50s, the CIA has made a priority and there is documentation that has made it out that basically indicates hundreds and hundreds of people paid or true actual operatives that are in these media networks. This was in the 50s and 60s.
I mean, you don't even need that. Like, I remember, so go look at the Joe Rogan latest podcast with the dude.
Yes.
With Charles Manson. Yeah, Charles Manson was part of the MK Ultra program. Mm-hmm. And so Helter Skelter, which was the book written by the prosecutor at the time, shows that they had put an ex-prosecutor on the defense team. So basically...
they completely sabotaged.
Yeah, they sabotaged the defense of the Charles Manson family. Obviously, Charles Manson was going to get it, but just so that nothing would come out.
Yeah. And have you ever seen a case that was made more likely to just make sure that everybody knew and thought these people were guilty and crazy? Yeah. Which, by the way, they were. But they were essentially controlled via drugs and
there was there's some weird shit. But the point is the media went straight with it.
Yeah.
So sometimes you don't even know operatives. You just bank on... If you give the media something easy enough and clickbaity enough, they'll go right with it. So now you add a few operators here and there, the right places, and you get the stories you want.
The Manson thing was essentially there to just basically cut the throat of the hippie movement and make it all of a sudden they're dangerous. These drugs are dangerous. These people are dangerous. And to possibly incite a race war.
Okay, so that's the nice aspect of it. Yeah. Me, you know how I look at it? A system Okay, so that's one way, but that's malfeasance.
Yeah.
Me, when I look at it from a system perspective, right, I never believe in the evil emperor. I wish, but that's too easy to kill. Yeah. I always see a headless bureaucracy as the greatest evil.
With its fingers that can just get into a lot
everywhere.
Of
and so what I see is an MK Ultra program.
It's a symptom.
That needs to find a way to turn people into killers. And like Black Swan event, like there's always one dude out of that program that will test it on the wrong people, which is exactly what it seems to have happened. And suddenly it's in the public, and the play starts to grow, and suddenly you go, and the system lets it happen because the constraints have been sent in a way like we need to see it work. And then you get the Charles Manson family, they go, oh, it works. Yeah. Then you get all the data, all the research, you put it aside, you crucify those, and you go, and then you say what the CIA say, oh, it never worked. Because the CIA actually said the MK program never worked. But now you have all that knowledge. So basically what I believe what Charles Manson was is human testing.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and in that era, that was a thing that was done a lot. Yeah.
Evil, the most evil, but without an evil emperor. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and to present someone like that as a mastermind in the media is fucking insane. It's totally crazy.
Anyway,
that's a person who was also. I mean,
he was in a weird way, but he was not the mastermind.
Not in that way, yeah. And I think that I do highly recommend that episode. It was Tom O'Neill. Was that
O'Neill? I remember the last name. He has a book called Chaos, Charles Manson, or something, which I'm reading right now. Oh my!
If you want, this is a man who has done 20 years of hands-on research, interviewed the prosecutor multiple times,
and he has all the papers. I'm reading the shit. He has all the proof,
all the audio tapes. 20 years of bulletproof journalism that will take you a lifetime of work, life's work, his life work.
That's why he doesn't want to do a second book, because that's all.
He's like, I don't got another 20 years.
Yeah, exactly.
But this will take you from CIA, MK Ultra, Manson and Tate, the Tate murders,
the prosecution system in the U.S.,
the prosecution system, the media control, and then lumps it right there onto the lap of the fucking Kennedy assassination as part of the same thing in the end.
Right.
And all of these things kind of just intertwine when a system just gets a little
and the
fucking.
CIA is right there.
It gets too much permission.
So
too much legal.
To go back to Epstein. So this is why we're saying like the far-fetched stuff sometimes is not far-fetched enough.
Yeah. I will say this in regards to the media. We're gonna jump to the death after this part, right?
Right. Yeah.
But before we go there, I want to talk about the death, but also his arrest before the death, right? Right. But the media first, when he got rearrested.
Yep.
Okay, and the circumstances of that. God, did I write this down? I should have. But basically, he was arrested in New Jersey, charged in 2019 for sex trafficking charges, full sex trafficking charges.
So this time it's not just
those indictments. I don't even know if they're public yet either. I don't know that if actually the documentation.
No. What I remember was he got arrested for something underage prostitution to get sex or blowjobs or whatever it was after massage. But also they added the sex trafficking because they basically sent some of the girls to get more girls.
Yeah. There was a recruiting aspect.
There was a recruiting to all things. Yeah.
But anyway, so that was kind of the big thing. But when this came down, again, with all the implications that went on from the first one to this thing and all the connections, this was in the ethos of the world.
Yeah, and by the way, so you have 8 years of the same shit happening between the two.
But at that moment, I just think this is a very interesting, at that moment when he gets arrested, Jeffrey Epstein is probably the highest profile American citizen in custody on American soil.
Once he gets arrested?
The last two that I could remember would have been O.J. Simpson, which, by the way, he made bail during his trial, though. So O.J. Simpson was only really in custody after the White Bronco thing. But that moment, O.J. was the biggest in history, I think, for them. And then I think probably Lee Harvey Oswald, when you see him in custody after, in their camera. Other than that, name a higher profile American citizen in custody on American soil, I don't know. So to drop the ball on that alone and allow this is fucking crazy.
But again, he gets rearrested, right? And I always go back to the media not asking the questions about his hedge fund not having a single transaction. Yeah.
Let's compare this thing though.
Yep.
I don't know how old I was during the OJ trial. I know everything about the O.J. Simpson trial. And every fucking regular person knows everything about the O.J. trial. Every detail, the glove. You know what the primary pieces of evidence were in the O.J. trial. Mm-hmm. Everyone does. Why did the media put that thing up front? Why? Well, it's just kind of divisive, right? That was divisive. The media brought that was divisive. That was white versus black. That was deep. That was divisive.
Because he was, once he got acquitted, man.
Yeah.
That
And
gnarly.
and the problem is, what did that do? That was the system just offering up a martyr, split the people.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Yeah.
And with the Epstein thing, what happened was I think it was so obvious that the system was what was going to get exposed in here, so the media just had to shut it down. There wasn't a way to be divisive about the Epstein thing. So nobody knows fuck all about the evidence, really, not the average person, surrounding Epstein's murder or even his case.
Don't say murder, c'est suicide.
I'm sorry. Death is the wrong word.
Yeah, exactly.
Or even his case. That he was going
right, but you could make the argument is that's because it's sex related.
Possibly,
because I'll make at the end I'll make that argument that I believe that the reason people are smiling about the whole stuff is because he was a rich, powerful, charismatic dude who liked women to the point where he liked them too young, and we are willing to accept that. Whereas the race stuff was harder for people to accept, so he created a higher anger.
That's possible. I also think, though, that with the Epstein thing, with just the sexual nature of it all and the way that's tied into the power structure, it does make it very difficult for people to want to just, like, talk about it with your neighbor. You know what I'm saying?
First of all, it's sex. And second of all, that is... again,
but it also is going to challenge your beliefs. So one of the things that I always have to tell people when we get into these things, it's like, what is it going to take? And this is frankly the easiest one for me to talk about. This one's very easy. But it's like, what is it going to take for me to convince you? What are you going to have to see to believe that Epstein didn't kill himself? Right?
No,
what would that take?
That's not what I'm talking about.
No, but just hang on here. But what I'm saying with this is, in that case, because a lot of people don't want to believe that the world is this way, that there are probably power structures at play that are using crime, sex, people, blackmail, all of this stuff, and billions of dollars, and you don't want to believe that. It's kind of it's like most people want to believe that their mother's still a virgin too. You know what I mean? Like, my mother, she never would.
No,
you know
exactly.
What I mean? Like,
but
that's
because my belief is that people were not interested into that story that the media put forward, which is a wrong story.
For sure.
But even the media that the story that they put forward, people are not that interested into it outside of the suicide murder, is because it's rich, powerful people have younger, beautiful women with them. Mm-hmm. And we all accept that as a fact that no one wants to change. Men don't want to change it, women don't want to change it. Mm-hmm. There's an accord, an understanding that money, power, and beautiful women go together. And no one truly wants to talk about it because no one wants to change it. Yeah. We'll finish with that because that's what the Harvey Weinstein showed me too, and everything is there is something there.
So to transition to the arrest, there's some very interesting. What happened also is after this Florida thing, there was enough noise. There's a groundswell of noise, though. The Miami Herald did a pretty fucking good job. There's a huge 3-part thing on there that the Miami Herald put together that is pretty fucking good.
Yeah.
If you
on how bad he
want to look
thing,
at, just kind of on what went on around the trial and shit, where you're just like, whoa, or the case and the deal and the pre and before and after, that the whole thing fucking stinks. So as he gets recharged, the truth is the nature of these charges don't matter, frankly, because it was just an extension of all the other things. But let's go through a timeline really fast. Yeah. I'm going to run through a real quick timeline because there's 2 things that happened when he was in jail. He was in jail. Once there was an incident in which he was found injured and semi-conscious in his cell on July 23rd. That is about 2 weeks before he was dead. Found injured in his cell. Where he was at, it was called, is nicknamed Manhattan's Guantanamo. And it's supposed to be a very miserable, cold place for like, where did
Rich
I have? People. Well, no. This one is for like.
Before you put to the other one. Okay.
This was, so Florida was the nice, easy one. That was a county jail. Yeah. He didn't even do state, but then this here was, he was arrested Manhattan? In custody in Manhattan at, quote, Manhattan's Guantanamo. I guess it's a nasty place. But it is, his cellmate during this time, after he was found semi-conscious and injured, was a former police officer charged with 4 counts of murder.
Did you see a picture of him?
Jacked. By the way, I know you can get drugs in prison, but I know you could also get steroids.
Obviously.
Jesus.
All right, so let's talk about this for a second. He's seen as a rapist of young girls. Mm-hmm. That would get you killed in most jails.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And now in this
Or at
case,
least beat up.
yeah, and now he is also in a special housing unit here as well. Again, that's why he's with a law
Protective
enforcement
custody.
officer.
Protective custody.
Yeah.
No, but like I'm just saying, like, by the way, I'm with you
sure,
completely.
yeah.
To put him in jail with that dude alone is weird.
By the way, I think this dude, I don't think he had anything to do with it. Gets better. Hold on.
Okay. No, but just to say, like that ex-police officer, Google him, look a picture of the dude.
I wish
just
I
to
had
put
the
him with
name.
that guy looks so weird.
I even thought I wrote it down again because he came up somewhere later.
Okay, so maybe it's a coincidence, but anyway, dude looks like Bane.
Yeah, for sure. So here's all that it's known about that incident.
Is it Italian dude?
I think so.
Italian
Yeah.
man? Oh my god, it's such a cliche
Yeah,
too.
for sure.
It's so good. Like this is the part where it's good. Now I mean,
So here we go. So there's 4 witnesses and Epstein that were at least have written statements that were given about this incident. 2 people said he, quote, might have tried to hang himself. 1 said the injuries weren't serious and could have been staged. Another said it was possibly an assault by his cellmate. And Epstein did say that he was, to his attorneys, I think, that he was attacked by his cellmate. His cellmate denies any of that stuff, and he actually comes up later on.
yeah, well, he's not going to say it. But...
So then he was on suicide watch.
Yep. Yes. Well, which is the important part.
Yeah. So that's the thing. They went and he was injured and semi-conscious. They thought it was a suicide attempt. They don't really know. They put him on suicide watch.
By the way, there's a tape of him getting out of his cell around that time. That got erased or disappeared or whatever. Yeah.
And so then we have 6 days later, he is pulled off of suicide watch and in a special housing unit with a cellmate. Now, I don't believe this is the same cellmate. So this was on 6 days after the 23rd. So that'd be the 29th. On August 8th, this is an interesting thing that people always kind of don't mention about this. August 8th, Jeffrey Epstein signs his will with his attorney. August 9th, Epstein's cellmate is removed and there's not replaced by one. Also, when you transition people from suicide watch to not suicide watch, one of the things is you actually often want to get them with a cellmate.
Just in case.
Because you're much less likely to kill yourself if you have a cellmate.
Yep.
So that was on August 9th. They take a cellmate out. Don't bring anyone back in. August 10th, 6:30 a.m., found dead in his cell.
So let's explain about that. That there were supposed to be cops at the time that were...
Correct. Supposed to be checked every 30 minutes, 24/7. Both officers falsified notes claiming that they had done it. They claimed that they were sleeping and surfing the internet. The internet stuff says, of course, they were just sitting there looking at boats and motorcycles and shit.
They were saying that there was only 2 people at the time because they were understaffed, which is kind of strange when you have the most notorious...
weren't even technically corrections officers. I think they were had been trainees or from a department that
basically they're saying they're understaffed and they only had those 2 people and those 2 people were there sleeping or surfing.
Now here's the best part. Now, people think that it's these guys being negligent, these guys that are being bad, right? There's a thing that happens, though. Both of these police officers are being charged with something, right? Negligence or whatever. They're being charged. They're placed on leave right now. But they're facing criminal charges for at least being shitty at their job and falsifying the documents.
Yes.
But you know what that means? That doesn't mean that those guys are bad guys. What that means is that those 2 guys will never, ever testify in front of court, because now they're under charges. They can plead the 5th. They can say, no, I don't have to say anything in order to protect myself. So now they will not make a single statement. Neither of them will be on the stand in their own cases, and then they won't testify for any other case. So even if there is something that they saw, they're not going to say it. Yeah. That's the interesting. So there's charges hanging over their lap. They will not speak. They will be silent. And so that is an interesting thing about that. That's just not just 2 lazy guards. There's a reason that they're being charged, in my opinion.
Yes.
Also, interesting note, one member of Epstein's legal team was with him until 6:30 p.m. the night before. That's really nothing major. He had a case coming up. But to note, there's been no suicides in that jail for over a decade, and only 1 successful suicide in the last 26 years in that jail. The 2 cameras outside the cell had malfunctioned. One was a technical error, and the backup was lost on the second.
Right, and by the way, this is so those were just either not taped or the backup was lost. on the tape where that was showing Epstein going out with his cellmate when he got
The first time.
Yep. That tape was erased by mistake.
And that one that was erased by mistake was found out that it was erased by mistake because of the legal request made by his former cellmate, the former cop, who claimed, quote, that video footage could show that my client acted admirably to help Epstein. Help him what?
Yeah.
You know, from who, from what? That's very interesting. Also, there's 3 fractures in the hyoid, basically like thyroid cartilage.
So the problem with that is if you hang yourself, like I'm sure that would make sense to everybody, is you get hanged high. The rope is under your jaw. Most of the injury is toward the lower part. Mm-hmm. If you know jiu-jitsu and stuff like that, when you choke someone, you don't choke, you choke, basically it's right under the Adam's apple. Because that's where you cut the blood flow and everything. Because of the way your arm is shaped, the bicep, like you're here, is this part right here that gets you under the Adam's apple. It's just the way you choke someone.
And one of the things about that is that whilst they said, it is often found in strangulation deaths or violent hanging deaths.
If you take a rope and strangle someone, you will be, again, below the Adam's apple. You will not choke him because of the way you move and everything.
But if you were to get it from a hanging, you could also still get that damage from a hanging. However, they said it is like 9 out of 10 times it requires like a 5-foot fall or more.
Right. Because then the rope is here and it snaps in your neck. But to choke, usually the rope goes under your jaw, and that's not where we saw the marks. We saw it low toward the base of the neck.
And a couple precedences, that same injury has been used to determine whether something is a homicide or a suicide before in the past.
And in that
it
case,
also has been determined to basically determine the severity of it. So remember that Eric Garner issue where the police choked that guy to death who said I couldn't breathe for selling cigarettes, right? Basically his hyoid bone was intact. It wasn't broken. So they said, see, that cop didn't act too out of line. He didn't break that thing. So it's okay. So that bone is
they don't understand choking,
is a deciding factor somewhere.
I can kill someone by choking them out without breaking anything.
Well, for sure. But what I'm saying is this thing can be the pivot point.
Right. So Eric Garner, in the case of Eric Garner, they say everything
that
is
way they can
fine.
just blame it on him being fat.
Exactly,
so
being fat. But in the case of Epstein, that had a worse injury. That's still a suicide.
Still suicide.
Yeah, exactly.
Multiple breaks are rare in suicide. Now, the interesting thing is this. You have to look at what the cell's like. You can find 3-dimensional mock-ups of that cell, by the way, on the internet, if you look.
It's kind of hard to...
That is not the type of cell where you're not there's no beams that you're hanging a thing from.
This was done
in a way where he has to use the bed, which is a low bed, and you have to kneel. So you have to literally tie the thing and get down and kneel. So there's really no way to
There's no drop. Basically, there's no drop. So you would have to choke yourself almost sitting with the top of the stuff and just let the weight do it. If that were the case, then the rope would be under the jaw. It would not be low on the neck.
Yeah.
If you look at the picture, you'll understand what we mean. There is no drop possible in that stuff, in that cell.
I want to give, but that's that. And so what has happened since then is all inquiries into Epstein's actual sex trafficking cases stopped. Because of why? Because there are already a clause that any co-conspirators from before are protected under that Florida deal. Then there is this case is done.
Well, there's one more thing that happened.
So there's civil cases right now is the only thing moving forward. Civil cases against victims to Epstein's estate.
There's one more question I would like to ask. How come we don't know where Ghislaine Maxwell is?
No manhunt. Not a word.
She has passports, right?
Yeah, multiple passports, by the way. And first-hand testimonies have her having passports from more than 4 different countries.
Right. But so one of those 4 passports have been flagged somewhere. How come we can't? And again, ask. I'm not even saying the media would get the answers because if as pretty sure Epstein is part of the community, of the intelligence community, then we won't get the answers. What bothers me the most...
you don't need to accept that either.
Yes.
That's the thing I'm mad.
Yeah.
This doesn't fall under intelligence. The same people that brought you the Kennedy assassination.
No, but I don't expect us to get the answer.
Yeah,
I agree.
I don't expect them to volunteer.
I don't expect
to. I think you could drag them by their neck out of their fucking homes.
But it's even worse because we didn't even ask the questions.
Yeah, nobody asked the questions.
How are we going to get the answer if no one is answering the question? What bothers me the most out of all this, from a system perspective is the fact that we didn't ask the questions, because this is how far we've fallen then.
Yeah.
On stuff that stinks left and right. But it's that just like Hollywood feel because it's sex.
Yeah.
But the implications of all this
are insane.
Is insane.
I mean, the Prince Andrew thing. I mean, that's
a weird one.
This is a quote here. This is from, of course, Epstein's former business partner. But his exact quote saying, "I sell Prince Andrew's secrets to Israel because and that Prince Andrew is my quote Super Bowl trophy." Like that's the biggest form of leverage that he kind of had, was that thing, and that's something that he had bragged about often, very often amidst his circles. Of course, now you can only take speculative quotes from within the circle.
But that's my problem, is speculative, because no one is asking the question.
Yeah, so
it's
put these
always
people on
be
the fucking stand.
Yes. Or at least start grilling.
Yeah.
Like they did that one interview on the Prince Andrew, which was a very strange interview where he didn't exactly say that he wasn't. Like he didn't do it now, is it?
No.
It almost said like, yeah.
Well, and there's pictures of Prince Andrew with the girl that he's denying having ever met. Now, granted, I've taken pictures with people there's photos I don't ever remember being in. But
totally.
I get that too. But again, there's just so many.
No, but I mean, let's be, okay, if those dudes are really 5 a day, how the fuck would you remember?
Yeah,
I'm sorry, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, no, I'm not defending him, by the way, in any shape or form. My biggest problem is the fact that we are letting this slide going like, it's intelligence agency and it's sex. The two things Hollywood sells the most. Yeah. We are so used to seeing intelligence movies and sex movies that we're like, that's the way it is.
Yeah.
That is...
And the fact that I've made it this far without pointing out the proven intelligence connections to drug trafficking in the United States is it's like this whole nother layer to it, whereas there's a lot of that other layer. Then that's where the Clinton things get closer to the Epstein thing. That's just too much to get into. But if you are not aware about those things, you need to just look into them, be reasonable, vet your sources, and just
do your own research. That's all.
But then you need to ask some questions. Frankly, fucking with Twitter, with Instagram, your senator, your congressman, they're all on there. Force this shit. Again, I don't know what else you can do.
By the way, you can look at yourself. There is no transaction on Epstein's hedge fund stuff. Yeah. Why is that not weird? So people are he's just funneling money from Lex Waxler. Yeah. I'm like, shouldn't we ask why? Isn't that strange?
Well, and especially if most of that money was legitimate at some point, then why are we delegitimizing the money?
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
Something that makes it very.
And why would a multi-billionaire just let someone have half of his shit?
Because the real effort is trying to make bad money look good. So don't take good money and make it look bad. That's fucking hard. It's really expensive to get it back there.
But one of the reasons we wanted to do that podcast, first of all, is because we're both enraged at the fact that no one seems to ask the questions. We're focusing on his suicide murder.
Yeah.
Which what annoys me the most. I'm like, the guy is dead. Even if he was a suicide, he was suicide. Yeah. He didn't do it because he felt bad. Trust me, he did it because like all Roman senators, he was like, you commit suicide or your whole family gets it.
Yes, Roman death.
So Roman death. That's it.
That was, but what's interesting is in this, so that's a thing that I still entertain the idea, right, that it could have been a forced suicide in the case. However, Epstein has never married, no children. So your leverage on a man like that with no morals, no children. I don't know at what point a person who's done all of those things, if he has done all of those things that he's accused of to this point.
No, but will destroy your life. You'll never you know what I mean? You'll spend the rest of your day. By the way, spend the rest of your days in jail in the US while being a child rapist.
Oh, for sure.
It's not an easy life.
Yeah. Now, I don't know that even at that point, I don't know. I don't think suicide over fear of a rough prison term. No. I don't know that he even thought he was going to get got.
That added to other stuff and everything. I'm not saying by the way, I'm not saying he was a suicide. I'm saying the fact that this is what we are focusing on. Yes. Is what drives me crazy. Really, I'm like, he's dead. Who gives a shit? Yeah. I mean, yes, it's important, but at the end of all the other stuff, and the number of people associated with the whole story,
and
how come we don't go to Lex Waxler to fucking ask him those questions?
Well, or just the death. All right, there seems to be some fucking weird things here that involve people that have to have had some power within those systems, shifting things around, like video cameras.
It's a lot of
There's just a lot of things.
Malfunctioning of cameras in that place.
It's just
By the way,
shit.
isn't it if all this is true, it's an indictment of the prison system in the US.
For sure. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
That alone, like that's what kills me with the suicide versus murder. Is like it's like a toy that you go like this with a baby so he gets distracted.
Yeah.
Because all the other shit has the implications. We're talking about tens of billions of dollars. We're talking about a shadowy world of billionaire club that you never really hear about.
And thousands of missing women.
At least in the hundreds.
Yeah.
And
500 that have been named.
Exactly.
And that's named, not seen. So that's very interesting. It's fucking crazy. But it's a systematic thing. And I think in this case, what happened, the media kind of thought that here's always the MO. Okay. We need, depending on the tool that the media wants to use.
Yes,
We're going to go
exactly.
one of two ways. We either need an invisible, unspeakable boogeyman like terrorism
evil
or
emperor,
a virus to
an evil
fucking
emperor.
give you something to be scared of that your overlords can protect you from. Or on the other side, and that's if they want you to feel unsafe.
Yeah.
If they want you to feel safe, all they say is,
one individual.
we got him.
We got one
Lee
individual.
Harvey Oswald. We got the fucking Timothy McVeigh. We got fucking we got Bin Laden, guys.
Yeah.
We got Saddam Hussein. We got
Harvey Weinstein.
Harvey Weinstein.
Okay, so Harvey Weinstein is, as everybody knows, pretty close to being a monster himself, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so he paid how many women to keep silent? So Harvey Weinstein basically was a very powerful producer, and let's be honest, a lot of the women came and had sex with him because they thought he was going to further their career or put them into the right position, because he was no Epstein.
Yeah.
He was not charismatic and charming and handsome
He was a bit of a chud, to say the
exactly.
least, yeah.
Right. So some of those women now claim rape, where even though they kept going with him and sending in emails saying, I love you, do you want to meet my mom? Like the last one.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay. But that means that he paid off hundreds of women to do whatever the fuck he was doing with them, like jacking off or whatever. Right.
Yeah.
So those payments went through lawyers. Most of those girls were actresses, which means they had agents, handlers. They are hundreds, if not thousands of people from the Hollywood community into the law side community that are involved into the whole thing.
That know and have known that that's the way things have kind of been going on for a while.
For fucking 20 years straight.
Yeah.
Everybody knew. And there's been enough stuff. Everybody knew. And so eventually, so it took a bit long for him to get his stuff. But with a number of people that know, no one is getting... No one... So can we even talk...
Nobody else.
No one
not an
is...
attorney. Also, like, is this the only guy? That was the... You mean you're telling me that some
It's
of
the
those
only producer
women
doing that.
who walked into that office
Didn't go into somebody else's office.
And that was the first time that they were surprised by that thing? No, it's that probably that's kind of the way things work, and that there is probably dozens of dirtbags like him in that industry, some bigger, some worse, some better, some like all of it. And what the industry did was they offered you up, here's your bad guy.
Yeah.
Boom, that's it.
And everybody is going for that.
My favorite meme from it was the scene in Batman when the plane's going down. They're about to drop the plane out of the sky, and Bane's ready to bail out with everybody. And he's like, well, where are we gonna go? And he's like, they're expecting one of us in the wreckage, brother.
Yeah.
And that's exactly. So I saw that with the Epstein thing, where he's like, well, what about the rest of you guys? Like, no.
They expect one of us in the wreckage, brother.
That's it.
But that's my problem with this is system versus people, because when a system needs to defend itself, it offers people.
Human sacrifices.
And so the more the system is fucked up, the more human sacrifices have to be made. So the Harvey Weinstein stuff is proving one thing, is that the entire system is doing that. But again, like some men will offer their soul for power. Mm-hmm. Some women will offer their body.
Yeah.
Right? And you see that system being at play. Power, money, and women have always been together. Fundamentally, people don't want to change that.
Yeah.
That's the thing. So no one wants to touch the system of we need for that kind of stuff to have. That's what it shows me, is that no one truly wants to change the system. So what do? We offer sacrifices.
Got 'em.
The problem is the worse the system becomes, the more it needs sacrifices.
Yeah.
And
much
so it's going
much
to...
like we've talked about with the cars, because the system is going to grow in complexity.
Right.
It'll get exposed
Exactly.
more often simply
And
by
you-
volume and probability. And every time it comes up, martyr, papa, martyr, martyr, martyr. And it's only going to get to this point. Just like, again, designing a system for cars, you're only going to have an inevitable fucking car problem for at some point.
Exactly. And so what we're going to see is the media feeding that, pounding more and more and more. Like, look at what happened with the Me Too movement, right? It started as a completely righteous cause that was very much necessary, right? And then it started to grow in complexity up until, to justify his existence, he needed human sacrifices because he could not go at the true problem, which means some women agree with the trade of my body for access to power. Right, but they can't go there, obviously. So what do? The system cannot touch the system, so it starts to touch people. So then he sacrifices, like that poor comedian who had like a bad date with a girl and end up like she hires a writer to do an anonymous piece and destroys him for years and shit like that, where like this is what, so the media feeds on that, and instead of attacking the system, starts to create sacrificial lambs there and there, and then the more the system needed to be protected, the more individuals had to be sacrificed. So now it's starting to quiet down. But we find out like a number of the accusations were bullshit, but at the time, it didn't matter. All they had to do was point the finger and you were done.
You're done, yeah.
Career is done, all that shit is done. To the point where you ended up in weird situations where slapping an ass is something as raping someone. So that's okay to say, but on the other side, you have the entire Harvey Weinstein story with thousands let off the hook. And at the same time where you have 50 Shades of Grey being the #1 book in the US.
Well, and the people, and the thing is, you would think that if there is an individual, right? Harvey Weinstein's a bad guy or whatever, right?
That's easy.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Totally.
Right?
That's
if
easy.
you would have told me that some super filthy rich Hollywood exec who's been entrenched in the industry for decades was like a kind of a dirtbag, does that surprise you? No.
Yeah.
Well, then he's a really easy guy to offer up and not like. And he is a bad guy.
Yeah.
But the amount of people that were complicit and knew, and some of these are the same fucking actors and actresses that are fucking like, that bit their fucking tongue on this thing for 20 years and exposed thousands of more victims.
Or maybe, by the way,
thing?
or maybe they accepted the money.
Possibly as well. Well, the amount of settlements,
money.
the settlements are very interesting because there's a lot of unwritten settlements that have been made in that case.
Right. And this is not to blame victims at all, but victims of rape is one thing. If you went had sex with a guy for your career and then he pays you off and stuff like that, and you agree to that settlement, you are part of the problem. We can't just put it on the dude on that one.
Yeah.
Right? Rape is different.
Yeah.
That's a completely different case. But by the way, is accepting a settlement for rape is letting the rapist go free though. Like if there was one or two, I understand, and it's very powerful. But when you have hundreds, it's enough to bring anybody down.
If you know your evidence is only circumstantial,
I get it.
I wouldn't know what to do. But at some point,
No, the system is not designed for
these persons. At some point, people, all of us, you need to be louder.
Right. That's what basically we're trying to say. Is it comes down to people. It's like it's not a good system for women to come out and say I was raped. Like it's hard to prove, and then all the shit happens. There's no denying that. But once if you're in a close circle where you know 20, 30 of you that went through the same thing that have money, power, and access to the media, you would think it would not take 20 years to get there.
The media's dismissal in the Epstein case of so much of the victim testimony.
Right.
The problem is I had to draw a line somewhere.
Yeah.
Otherwise, this would be a 5-hour podcast. But if I was able to include firsthand testimony in how I chose to present stuff today, you would be pretty certain that the world is a much more horrible fucking place than you ever
Even
ever
if half
imagined.
of it is true.
If
Let's say half were lying.
If
half
half of them,
lying. Yep.
if half of them are bold-faced lying,
Yep.
and this is your first time hearing about the real details of the story, if half of those people are bold-faced lying, this will still completely upend your impression of what the world is and what people really are and what the structures of government, people, politics, and intelligence are.
This is what bothers me the most in our list is the willingness of us. So not the media, us outside of those power structures, the willingness of accepting people as sacrifices when the system as an issue. You know where I see that right now is in science. There's that dude who, by the way, I discovered that the dude who went off on Instagram has done that before to other people. It's a business model of his.
Oh, okay.
I was like,
Make
okay,
noise.
that makes
Draw
more
a line
sense.
in the sand.
Exactly right. So he came at it from a very more high moral ground. I'll explain on another podcast what it was about. For a very high moral ground, and at some point he says half the world doesn't want to believe in science anymore. I was like, that is not true. Half the world, if that number, I don't know where you get the number from, but let's say half the world doesn't want to believe in scientists anymore. First of all, because of shit like this, where you guys come extremely arrogantly at people that you deem are non-scientists, which to do to me is kind of funny in a way. Like I was like, dude, yeah, sure, let's go at it. But I see the same problem within science, where the world of science was corrupted. Right? Physics have always driven science forward since the Greeks. After World War II, because of production of the A-bomb, the American government started to put so much money into producing more atomic to nuclear and everything. The field of physicists grew like 1,000-fold, and they all got paid a lot and came to the US and everything. Money corrupted physics at that stage because it became about production, not development anymore. Before, it was just some dudes in a lab somewhere doing what he wanted. Well, now it's like, no. We're going to direct the research. You have to produce. Monetization of physics kind of started to corrupt physics in that sense. And from there, it went toward science in general. So the science world, the system has a problem. And what happens when the system is in trouble? It starts to point fingers to make sacrificial lambs. That's my problem with science, is that's what we're going to see now, which means the people that are not... So what happens when a system needs to defend itself? It sends drones. And so now the drones are there telling me, like, you don't want to create a fat diet. You don't want to create this, you want to create that. I was like talking about sugar and excessive carb intake. Well, even that is, I'm like, this is insane. So it reminds me of priests saying that you cannot talk about spirituality if you're not part of the church. That's what they're saying. And so the system of science is sick at the core right now. And that's something we don't want to talk about. And so we're going to allow individuals to be sacrificed on the altar of purity of science, which is all a bullshit with empirical evidence that they all give you in the fitness industry right now. It's like, that's not how science works. You have qualitative study before quantitative study. Empirical science is there, data is there to disapprove something, never to prove something. It's there to disprove something. That's not how science works. And science is a Bayesian inference model. If you don't make an hypothesis, then you can never create anything new anyway. So there's an entire system there that worries me.
Well, and I think it's the same thing as what went on with the printing press and with religion. You know what I mean? When the Bible first became translated
Gutenberg.
and fucking able to get sent out,
Gutenberg,
and basically there was no
control,
from
the church.
And what happened before then was the priests controlled the message, and they controlled it
because they were the only one writing.
They're the only ones writing. They were the only ones with the book,
good translation,
and they could read. And the whole thing that was the whole system. And how does that sound right now when we have a system that is controlled, that literally tells people exactly, like, could we have a fully controlled, like, information system now? There's only a few things that squeak out through outside of the system right now. Shit like podcasts, shit like some webs. But when you try to look into these things, and even Google search, try to work around the official narrative, and you will actually see what some of those mechanisms really are for controlling the message. Google search Jeffrey Epstein, what happened to Jeffrey Epstein's death, or Jeffrey Epstein, the word Epstein and conspiracy in Google, you will get, and it's a very easy strategy. I can make, if I am the Associated Press or whatever, I make one article that goes out, print, and goes out to everybody, right? And then every little major news network, the parent companies, they'll cover something on that thing. That's why you can see all those clips of, like, the same news people saying the same catchphrase. All that's done on purpose, but it's mostly for continuity of message. But it really is a matter of true consistency.
That's the problem, is you go from continuity of message into the same thing being said all the time. That's a danger in itself. By the way, funny story, the Gutenberg press, do you know what the first book was ever, how it came to be, and how the first book that was ever ordered was? It was the Bible. You know who ordered it? The church. Because their vision of it was, if we could put more Bibles throughout the world, we'll have even more control. And what they didn't know is that they basically issued their own death sentence by doing that.
Yeah.
How funny was that?
Yeah.
That shows you how systems work.
Yeah. Well, and so to get back to the Googling thing, right? So they make this system. They put out this, and it rolls. Every local news station says it on TV. Then it shows up on their TV station website.
So I know,
right?
I've
So
seen
for
it,
search engine optimization, you search for anything Epstein conspiracy related, you will see hundreds of articles saying all these conspiracy loons are coming out of the woodwork for the Epstein thing. And all of a sudden, any alternative narratives are also being addressed in the search engine side of things.
But
it's not just presenting you with good information, it's algorithmically and via the system making sure that that's the information.
And they do that
to the
with
top.
the virus now.
For sure.
So now you have that weird thing in the US where you can't say that the economical ramifications of the lockdown are going to be astronomical and might end up being worse than the cure itself. Right? Then the cure might end up being worse than the disease itself, right?
Yeah.
And you can cite numbers and stuff like that. Like, for example, Italy that's the stuff this morning, was ravaged by the virus, 24,000 deaths. Except that if you look at the number of deaths from the flu in Italy from 2013 to 2016, it's 68,000. Yeah. On average, 22,000 a year. So roughly the same number. Yeah. But that is being quashed as being far-right Trumpian side now.
Yeah.
Because
they go divisiveness. When there's information that attacks the system,
so if
the
you're
system
liberal,
goes, you need to hate those people or those people, not us.
So if you're liberal, you want to stay at home for another 6 months, even though by then, by the way, if we do this, you have to understand that third world countries will starve to death. Yeah. Like we should say it right now, like it's already the famine around the world is going to double very soon because of the disruption of the overall economy and everything. Like most likely, maybe I'll be wrong, and then I'll offer an apology if I am. But my guess is if we really tally up the numbers 6 months from now, we'll see more death from the cure than from the disease itself. Yeah. Anyway, but if I start to say like the economical pressure is too much for the number of deaths that I become a far-right Trump guy. Yeah. That is so weird. Insane. We can't even have a conversation anymore. And if we start to talk too much, we'll get demonetized on YouTube.
The problem is you can't have a conversation about what you should be having a conversation about, which is the fucking solution.
Right. Can we talk about solution?
That's a reasonable thing to talk about is, I think the solution might be overstepping the bounds as necessary. Can we come up with a better solution? Not, we don't need a solution. So, this is what's bullshit. Is if you say I want a better solution to climate change or to the virus, they say, what are you, a climate change denier or what, you don't believe in scientists?
Let's say...
no, I think your ideas
But by the way, I can do both. I can believe completely in climate change and say we need to do something.
Better ideas. Let's do it.
But even say, let's say, even if I'm completely on board with climate change, saying like we need to torch whatever scientists say, I can still then disagree with the handling of the coronavirus. Yeah. And one does not equal the other. For sure. Why are we being put in boxes like this? Yeah. Well, liberals now are forcing the issue one way, and then the right is forcing the issue like, I'm neither.
And this is the problem. Neither are any of the people that I talk to. None of my friends, none of them identifies this shit. There's just a few, and they just believe it. The people that are out raring against it, defending a fucking horribly flawed system, I might add. No, but by the way,
this solution that we are employing right now, what happens 2 years from now when there's another? Is that what we're going to do every 2 years when there's a virus we don't understand?
Well, that's what I was mentioning to you before the thing. I said, even if this works, and this one works really well, the problem is this is unscalable. You can't do this every time something may or may not be bad comes up, which means let's have a conversation about having better policies. Let's find better policies.
This is the principle.
But if I say that, they're like, what do you don't believe in them? You don't believe in the scientists? You want nurses to die?
No, by the way,
I'm like, fuck off.
Herd immunity means that we all need to be in contact with the virus.
With each other?
With each other, the virus and everything. So you can't have herd immunity just through vaccines, not at the beginning. So that means it's always been like that. And I'm sorry, I feel bad for all the people that died. But again, the flu has been ravaging the earth for like every year. And my problem with this is you didn't care about the 22,000 people that died from the flu last year in Italy. Well, and then suddenly I don't understand.
Well, and don't get me started on the discrepancy in the models. Like, okay, we're supposed to say scientists, models, listen to them. Fuck you, you're dumb. You barely graduated college. You didn't go to college, Tyler. Yeah. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Well, I'm actually looking at the things, and the model, then the next fucking model is this massive correction. And I'm like, well, where's the difference here? And it's like, well, they're scientists. I'm like, well, no. These scientists were really fucking wrong.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Remember that the US, they were announcing 200,000
250 on the high, 150 on the low. That was including the
social distancing and the lockdown and everything.
Then it comes down to 60, and these people say, see, we social distance. I'm like,
no,
those were taking that into account.
No, because without social
there's like
distancing,
2.5 million.
They were talking about 2 millions and everything. And I, like, the fact that we can actually politicize even the virus is insane to me. But I don't understand why we cannot talk about the economical pressure of what we're doing right now. Like, I understand that big corporations will be able to survive, but a lot of small businesses won't.
Yeah. Well, with this thing too, is we talked about the school, media, all those things are, I view them as indoctrination tools, kind of. At least a way to control the information that goes into your citizen's head, into a society. And I just think that those tools work really fucking well. And I can see it when I see people defending things very, very adamantly that they just haven't actually thought about ever. I'm like, oh, you've never thought about this beyond what somebody else put in your head. Right. Like, that means you have not thought about this, and you have not looked into this, and you should be insulted.
But that's what bothers me right now is I see a system that was giving, so in that case, the medical world, I was given power, and I see already abuses of it in the way of you're not allowed to say anything. Like, I got attacked twice on Instagram, basically, just for saying like the whole stuff with the Prevotella, and I was a shot in the dark. That's why I said, by the way, it's a preprint, so it says that it has not been peer reviewed yet. And I was like,
but is that the gold standard?
No, but plus,
it gets peer reviewed. So now what? Now it's true?
Yeah, but plus, I was like, I would think that would be a crazy connection. So obviously, I'm assuming. But even that, like, I got attacked by 2 PhDs, like. But again, like, if they would say like, well, dude, that's a shot in the dark, and I would have been like, yeah, you're right. I was just putting an idea out there. If you're telling me that's too early, I agree with that. But no, it's like literally insult, like calling me a conspiracy carb guy on one side, and then I was like, why the insults? Why can't we just? And then a freestyling guru, I was like, you have no clue who I am. I mean, it turns out it's a business model for the guy. I'm like, I can't even. So Instagram is for me to just make money. Then is to just. I can't talk to you guys. Yeah. That's what it means, right? So Instagram, that I have to be careful because it's about money. And it's like, this is the system. Like
well, you know, here's the problem.
I won't live in that world.
That system ramping up its wait. We can maybe kind of end on that too. Is the system is going to ramp up the way these systems and these structures change. These types of structures, when they go exponentially, once they get beyond a certain point, when we talk about the increasing complexity of the convergent everything, it's all going to end one place, which is everywhere, right? Yeah. It's going to get its hands into everything. Every business that only focus on growth gets too big too soon, gets stretched too thin. External factors change and they collapse. Yep. These things, if you're going to fail by stretching and expanding and complexity, those don't fucking go, all right. They don't gradually back in. That's why when I talk about how the CIA and their media stuff they had in the 50s, 60s, 70s, it continues. Do you think they just fucking went, all right, guys, we're done? No, fuck off. Those things keep going until there is a massive catastrophic they have to be completely torn down. And they are in the system, not they, but the system is insulating itself against that automatically. Every little department, every little thing, every conversation, every process is built to protect the system in it, and the measures have to get more extreme. Yeah,
until he dies under his own weight.
Yeah,
but that's what I see with the secondary education, like the university stuff. It's a Ponzi scheme designed for one thing, is to produce more professors, not researchers. They're researchers, but that's private. That's money.
Then on the back end, then on the back end of the universe, this thing is the university is bending over the people twice, because there's the Ponzi scheme on the top end,
to be professors,
side, and then there's the fucking literally just the financial fleecing of America that's going on.
So it's a Ponzi scheme.
Yeah. I mean, literally the only debt that like.
Yeah, so now you have a PhD, and if you can't be a professor, there is no money to be made. I know guys that have a PhD in one subject and ended up working in a different field.
I think what is it? It's child support, and if you get an actual court, you have to go as far as getting a court judgment and going to court to have your wages garnished out of your paycheck, legally speaking, except for child support, which I believe should be the way it is, and your goddamn student loans, which that is fucking crazy to me.
Yeah, but by the way, it's a definition of a Ponzi scheme. How many professors can you have? What if you have more professors than students? Eventually, because it's exponential.
Well, you will be there at some point,
right? It's exponential.
Well, and that's what you have. What you have now is you have a structure that exists with a lot of people with a lot of status, but nowhere to flex that power. Yep. So you end up with a university structure of a lot of professors who know a lot, who stand there and are very loud, and they only try to reach out in influence and not in quality. And not in actual progress. They just stretch in influence.
You know why also? It's because they need another field for that money. Yeah. Like that field is running out of money because of the students' loans and everything. Like the Ponzi scheme needs a new influx of money. You know what that's going to be? The internet. Mm-hmm. That's what worries me, is once that system, that Ponzi scheme system going on in the US right now of higher education happens, once they start to find the internet, we're doomed because the system will sacrifice people like us first.
Yeah. By the way, we should mention before we go that Julien and I are both in good spirits. Life is pretty good. Things are going really well.
Oh, yeah.
If anything were to happen to us over the course of the next time, it most certainly would not be a suicide. So
yes. We might die training. Now, that is possible. But short of that, it won't be suicide.
But if I do, still look into it. All right, guys?
Just make sure he was on the harness. Just know that I've done that long enough to kill me on the harness. Right. So, by the way, I do not take any drugs.
If
because
I die training, it's his fault.
Yes, that is true. That is true. That is totally true. But if I die training, I do not take drugs, steroids of any kind.
Yeah.
I have nothing. So
and he does plenty of cardio.
I do. And if they find anything in my system, I'm telling you right now, it was bullshit.
Yep. For sure.
I'll take a test tomorrow to prove I don't take anything. If I ever die with something in my system, we touched something. I'm just saying.
Coming for the throne.
I'm just saying.
So, well, I think that's got a tremendous, I don't even know how long this is.
I don't know, it's probably long because I'm hungry.
But I did not go as thorough as I could have, guys. I'm glad I didn't because you spend way too much time in the weeds. So I hope this was enough. Like, everything should be easy to substantiate, at least everything we said.
But again, for me, the important part of this is ideology over people is the greatest source of evil.
Yeah.
Be careful when systems need to defend themselves because at some point, it'll be your ass.
And it's not a person that you're talking to. You need to understand, sometimes in those cases when someone is coming out of the woodwork, they are just, I hate to say this, but they are just programmed by a lifetime of school and parents and television and blah, blah, blah.
It's just the system defending itself. Yeah. It's a drone coming at you to defend the system. Yeah. But that's what worries me with all this, especially with science, is I see they're gaining power. And the second you're going to give that power to academics, because right now the academics is suffering. Yeah. If you give them power, the system will grow again, will start growing again. And that usually leads to bad things.
By the way, since we've been doing some show notes on this, I am really, on the podcast lately, I am really interested to see how Paulo comes together with this one. Because normally they're very training related. It's like Julien's specific claim about this. This is Julien's stance on this. And every one of these is going to be like, it'll be like category Epstein, the day he died. And
exactly. Right. Was it murder or was it suicide?
So this will be good. As far as, I don't know what other content a person should be looking at. That O'Neill one is a really good one. Go of Rogan.
And read the book. Chaos, Charles Manson's and something.
Yeah. If you want, at least, because that is very bulletproof.
Yeah.
It's a good starting point that would get into you, first of all, not trusting the intelligence, not trusting the media.
And to show you that sometimes the whole conspiracy theory becomes a blanket and there's a few things sticking out of the blanket here and there.
And I'm a firm believer that there's not 1,000 different conspiracy theories. This is where people are wrong. I think if you can't find a connection from one to another, they probably aren't it. So the real thing is there's probably just one. I just don't know which one that is.
Is
that the earth is flat? Is that the elites are drinking the blood of children? Is that aliens have been running the world for the last 10,000 years? Is that?
But what I do believe is that systems are built on constraints and always increase in complexity. And at some point, that always lead to people being sacrificed.
Yeah.
And that's what I think with Charles Manson. I think he was a human experiment that went a little bit too far, but it didn't go too far based on the constraints.
No, it worked.
Exactly.
This is the thing, is people view the Charles Manson thing, even if you are in the
that's what he was designed
world,
to do.
That is not a failure, quote unquote, for the intelligence.
That's what he was designed to do.
That is a successful mission amongst the MK Ultra mission.
Exactly. Then now, did they aim for that particularly? I don't believe that for a second. But they aim for someone going ballistic. And that's what they got.
To disrupt the
And sometimes when you go... Okay, that's another one where I don't know, so I won't even go there.
That's true.
All I see is, let's design a program to make people go ballistic and start killing people under certain things. And that's exactly what they got. And when you build that system, you get Charles Manson.
Yeah.
Because you're going to get toward a certain kind of people and everything. So now, did they use that after for the hippie movement? They did. But was that the original goal?
Probably
Maybe
not.
not.
No. But
so
that was
what
a
I
success
believe is,
as far as what the larger...
yes.
Because there are documents about what the intent of some of those...
Yep.
Side missions, if you will, were amongst that. And
or maybe they just were opportunistic
Yeah.
and saw the chance to kill the hippie movement.
Can I make it weird before we go?
Yeah, go.
Okay, so there's really, really cool ones about the MK Ultra stuff.
Yeah.
They go in. I can't go. You go into all of them. They're too far in the weeds. But there's really, really, really cool ones with what they had done. If you replicate out that pattern from the counterculture stuff with the hippies, they had done that kind of disrupt that and get the people back in line. Don't let anyone become too inspiring. Yeah. That type of stuff. Massive connections with MK Ultra and military intelligence and CIA to Courtney Love. Huge connections. And that also that Kurt Cobain wasn't most likely her first stop on this place, that she often would be kind of set up and dropped into these places. And what she had access to was drugs because of the CIA's connection through all this stuff. She could get drugs to the place, any amounts to any of these people all the time. You look into the Courtney Love thing for the MK Ultra reason alone, that's great. But that's separate even from the Kurt Cobain suicide thing, which is another really good one.
There you go.
But you can go everywhere with the MK Ultra stuff.
Read The Manchurian Candidate.
Yep.
Like the book, and then because then they go into, but that's all 60s, 70s. But again, since then, by the way, when they got finally the CIA got caught on this, they went in front of Congress and said, yes, we tried, but it didn't work.
There also was
bullshit. And that one is bullshit.
And those information requests, actually, when they requested all of that information to come to Congress, none of that stuff came up. There were no official documents regarding MK Ultra whatsoever at all, which meant even though there were information requests and it was required to be brought up in front of Congress, those documents never ever existed until there is one tiny little fucking warehouse that had only financial documents relating to it, but there was enough adjacent things about what the purpose
and
of
there
the
was
money
one
was
dude
for.
who was crazy enough to go through it for 20 years.
Yeah, and so it's crazy. So anyway,
and so there was no conspiracy, but if there was one, it didn't work.
Yep,
that's basically what the CIA said. Yeah.
So
that's why some of that stuff, like, it's necessary.
So you can go really far into the weeds.
I don't.
Really far.
I don't.
I don't.
Yeah,
I do.
Yeah, he does.
I do, but I'm very discerning, and I've had about 15 years of like knowing what things I can comfortably dismiss.
He's a trained theorist.
Yeah. But I still get very excited. When Julien and I start going, the problem is, like I said, because there's one conspiracy, I think, so I can't talk about one without grabbing onto another.
Yeah.
And so I become exhausting to talk to.
Yeah.
I'm like Julien, but of conspiracy theories and not as charming. So thanks a lot for listening, everybody. StrongFit.com, StrongFitEquipment.com. All the views presented today are not fully representative of StrongFit as an organization. StrongFitLibrary.com is to be the library, all the other stuff that's not conspiracy related. We also have podcast.strongfit.com to support the podcast. Make sure to check out the cooking show on YouTube. Subscribe at youtube.com/strongfit. Sandbags can be got at strongfitequipment.com or .eu. Manta Fitness for all your StrongFit goods in New Zealand and Australia. And programs, functional integration training template, and one-on-one coaching with Julien. Training template's crushing it. It is crushing souls and making people jacked all over the world.
It's working for me.
We're finally seeing it's been out for long enough now. We're getting to kind of some people that are riding the deal, and it's been doing really well. So you can look into that. Click below. Other than that, that's it. Start a revolution. We'll see you in a couple days.